Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lynlee Fu.
Hey there, it's Lynlee with you. How are you doing this Monday afternoon? Welcome to Industry Insight, where we decode the trends transforming business and technology in Singapore and across the region. This week, more than 25,000 global tech leaders, innovators, and policymakers are gathering in Singapore for Asia Tech Exchange Singapore 2025, or ATX, now in its fifth edition. As the region faces a new era of economic and digital transformation, ATX will spotlight how frontier technologies like AI, space innovation, and quantum computing are reshaping how we work, govern, and grow. And this year's event comes at a pivotal time where the lines between digital disruption, geopolitics, and business transformation are blurring. And no one's better positioned to help us make sense of it all than Mr. Kiren Kumar, Deputy Chief Executive at the Infocomm Media Development Authority of Singapore. We'll be talking about how businesses are navigating today's volatile environment, what tech leaders are prioritizing this year, and what to expect from this year's ATX Summit. Kiren, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Lynlee, for having us.
Now, let's start with a broad view. You're in constant dialogue with business leaders, global tech firms, government agencies. From your vantage point, what are some of the most urgent conversations happening in the tech space right now?
Thank you so much for having me once again. I think, I've been in the tech industry for more than 15 years now, and I must say the pace and scale and rate of transformation that's happening with technology, both on the development side and also on the opportunity side, is just unprecedented. If I could just frame it, today we are facing a very exciting time. On one hand, you have tech optimism. We have never seen technology development around AI, quantum, space, and many other areas accelerate its development into adoption and making an impact in industries. On the other hand, we are starting to see tech contestation. Optimism, contestation. That is the balancing point that global leaders from around the world, whether they're from industry, whether they're policymakers, or whether they're academia, they're thinking very deeply about. Why is this? You have great technology coming to the fore. You've seen what's happened with Gen AI. In the next bound, you're going to see agentic AI, embodied AI. How do AI technologies go into motion, into robots, into taking actions on autonomous basis? You're going to see quantum computing and quantum communications actually drive the next wave of growth as a platform. And you're seeing space industry also being transformed dramatically. On one hand, that's the optimism, but on the contestation side, you're seeing tensions around tariff, trade, access to technology, all happening at the same time. What does this mean for global leaders who are shaping the path of tomorrow today? I think the most urgent issue today is for us to work as a collective global ecosystem to ensure that technology remains open and is deployed in a safe, responsible, and meaningful way to make impact in our global ecosystems for good. And that's really what ATX plans to do as a platform. This is our fifth year. We are convening leaders from around the world to discuss these urgent topics of today, to see how we collaborate to bring the world of technology and its impact into the future in a meaningful way.
Very interesting overview there, Kiren. Now, that shift from, I suppose, tech as support to tech as strategy really resonates, I think. Let's talk about AI, because we've moved well beyond the hype phase. For businesses listening in, especially those in finance, logistics, or even operations, where are we seeing concrete returns from AI?
Now, I think AI is going to be the next wave of opportunity for Singapore's digital economy. And I think that wave is going to come from a particular three dimensions. The first dimension is really Singapore has been preparing itself to actually leverage and benefit from the technology advancements in generative AI. Our bets in AI have been over the last 7 years. Oh. And I think that has put us in a good stead on the frontier technology bets we have made to ensure that our research institutes, our PhD researchers are plugged into the best and brightest from around the world to build new technologies to enhance generative AI. So one is technology bets. We launched our national AI strategy about a year and a half ago, and over there it spells out our strategies in that space. But one critical area is that making frontier bets in technology for Gen AI. The second pillar is really around how do we drive adoption across the entire economy, because that's where value is manifested, that's where productivity is uplifted, that's where innovation and new products are made. That's where we create jobs and opportunities for Singaporeans. And on that front, IMDA has been very busy over the last decade or so, and even more so moving forward, given the pace of change. We have driven enterprise digitalization across the entire economy. We address needs of the entire economy. We work with the largest companies to anchor some of their frontier AI centers of excellence in Singapore. And we have had 26 of those, and the target is to hit 100 over the next 3 years as part of our national AI strategy. For companies that are already digitally mature, we are working with them to bring them to the next level by partnering globally leading companies like AWS, Microsoft, and NVIDIA to bring the best of breed technologies to transform their businesses, whether they are in childcare provision or whether they are in manufacturing or whether they are in finance. And for the broad-based SMEs in Singapore, we have 240,000 of them. Over the last decade or so, through our SME Go Digital program and CTO as a service, we have touched more than 150,000 SMEs. Today, 9 in 10 SMEs actually have adopted digital solutions through our various programs. And we are seeing now the next wave where they're adopting more advanced solutions, including Gen AI solutions, to transform every business function from finance, HR, marketing, and many more. So that's the story on the adoption side of the house. We have a lot more to do, and we'll continue to drive on that momentum. But in order to drive adoption and to unlock value, we also need to train our workers. So as part of our national AI strategy, we have put in place programs to triple the number of AI practitioners we have in our ecosystem from 5 to 15,000. But more importantly, we have put in place programs to uplift 3.5 million of our workforce, whether you're a marketeer, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a finance executive, or whether you're a legal professional. Everyone needs to lean forward to learn these technologies to become a lot more productive. So I think that's on the second pillar. And then the last pillar is really around how do we come up with governance frameworks to ensure that this technology is used responsibly, meaningfully, and is good for the entire ecosystem.
Okay, I think at the heart of adoption is actually assurance, I think. As AI decisions start affecting lives, reputations, compliance, businesses need more than just performance, right? So I think that's where Singapore's approach to AI governance stands out globally. So can you share more on IMDA's AI Verify framework?
I will. And IMDA's mission is to be the architect of Singapore's digital future, and we want to make sure that it's done in a responsible way. Over the last 7 years or so, before Gen AI broke into the scenes, we launched our model governance framework at Davos more than 6 years ago. And that was the first start of our move into that area. We clearly recognize that instead of regulating a fast-evolving technology, we need to co-create with industry meaningful frameworks and tools such that we are co-creating this as the technology develops. And that was a very different paradigm and mental model. And over the years, we have launched many different products and solutions and working closely with industry to continue to refine it. 2 years ago at ATX, we actually launched the AI Verify Foundation, which was a grouping of leading companies and countries from around the world to come up with open source frameworks so that we can co-create and enhance those frameworks when it comes to companies building on AI, implementing AI solutions in a safe, responsible, bias-free way. So in that vein, we launched the AI Verify Foundation. We have more than 70 companies working with us in that foundation. It's an open source. We work with everyone to create frameworks and toolkits such that companies can use it to test their AI solutions before they apply it, to test for bias, transparency, and ethics. Some recent moves that I'd like to share is at Paris, we also announced the global assurance pilot that the AI Verify Foundation will run, and we'll be announcing the results from that, where 15 companies have worked with leading testing companies from around the world, and we will codify that body of knowledge and share it with the broader ecosystem globally, coming out of that pilot. And just a few weeks ago, we had the best and brightest researchers in AI convened in Singapore for the iClear conference. And at that conference, we launched the Singapore Consensus on AI research priorities to actually drive the next wave of AI safety and governance. So we are really trying to take a cross-border global perspective and lean in to actually convene countries and companies to come together to make sure that we are doing this in a safe, responsible, and effective manner globally, not just in Singapore.
There's so much happening, Kiren. And when we look ahead, we're hearing more about agentic and embodied AI. Are these just emerging buzzwords, or are they closer than we think?
Yeah, I believe it's a lot closer than we think. When November 2022, when ChatGPT was launched and it captured the imagination of the world, it was a large language model. 2.5 years out, we have large language models which are multimodal. They can do audio, text, video, and who knows what next. And I think in that vein of the trajectory of technology evolution over the last 2.5 years has been unprecedented in many people's mental models. And I think moving forward, it will just accelerate. So some of the new areas we're seeing within AI, and we'll be talking about this at ATX, one is around agentic AI. So yes, you have many large models as the foundation, but if you have agents which are very good at niche application areas, how do you create those, orchestrate them, and actually drive tremendous amount of automation in the enterprise? And that's where the value is going to be in terms of driving a lot more productivity, from HR functions to finance functions to booking a trip if you wanted to go to Japan at a consumer level. There are many possibilities. Having said that, we are at the early days. Okay. There are some challenges when it comes to implementing this at scale. Governance becomes a big issue around getting an agent which is automated to take decisions, right, and actions. So I think that's one big area of focus for us in the next bound of governance. The other area is around which are the low-hanging fruits of first frontier use cases where agents will be used. And to discuss all this at ATX, we have leading companies from around the world, from OpenAI. The Chief Strategy Officer, Jason Kwan, will be here. We have Mistral's CEO, Arthur Mensch, as well as Cohere's Aidan Gomez, who are frontier companies in this space who are charting the future to discuss exactly this. Where is the technology going? Where are the use cases? And what are the bottlenecks we need to solve as a collective ecosystem to have a breakthrough in agentic systems? The other area is embodied AI, which is when AI meets robots, what happens? When a robot is able to learn autonomously and do tasks and functions without controls. How does that change healthcare? How does that change manufacturing? How does that change applications of aged care at home? So there's so many possibilities in terms of areas of application. We are in the early days. How soon will it come? You're already seeing embodied robots dancing at various events. But now when you apply it to real world cases, there's safety, security, decision metrics and biases. How do we work on that to ensure that that adoption happens in a safe, responsible way? So that's embodied AI and agentic AI of some of the areas that we're looking at.
Kiren, like you mentioned, these technologies, they feel like they're still on the fringes. We're talking about other things as well, like quantum computing, space innovation, and secure communications. But they are advancing fast, no doubt. But what should PMEBs be paying attention to now?
So I think from where I sit and what I've seen, I think the pace of technology acceleration is growing. So I think the term is going to come sooner than you think. Is something that permeates at least my mental model as I look at many of these technologies today. It's coming sooner than you think because the pace of technology acceleration is very, very high. Having said that, the pace of adoption could be faster. And I think over here, there are a couple of bottlenecks. One is we need to uplift every PMET, every worker needs to lean forward to learn how to use these technologies. They may not be experts at building it, but you need to be conversant, responsible users of this technology in your workplace so that you're being more productive and you become a lot more valuable in your career. So I think that's one big thing. The second big thing is enterprises, when they deploy this at scale, they will need to think through their data infrastructure, their governance frameworks, so that they're doing it in a safe and responsible way. So adoption and skills sort of come hand in hand. And what we have seen from enterprises in Singapore, at least for the digitalization wave that I mentioned earlier, they have been leaning forward and doing this. So we are used to this. As a country, as an ecosystem, as an economy, we are used to leaning forward to leverage technology. Because if you think about the challenges that we have as a country, we don't have enough manpower, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough land, and we have always leveraged technology to overcome those constraints. And I think this wave is going to be no different. It's just going to be a lot faster.
Okay, this is a kind of a personal favorite of mine. Share with us some thoughts that you might have around the space tech side of things.
Yeah, so I think space is another fast-moving space. I mean, technology is disrupting every area, from ride-hailing to space. In space, we are very used to satellite technologies decades ago, and that's still there. But some of the new innovations there is LEO, low-orbit satellites. Okay. And you're seeing companies like Kuiper, Starlink, and many others who can deploy these technologies at a much lower price, and actually could drive a lot of value in rural areas around the world for coverage, for connectivity, for IoT technologies to drive agriculture, to drive farming, to drive healthcare delivery in rural areas, to drive communication. These are new possibilities. And at ATX, we're also going to have a distinguished panel talking about what are the new business models that are evolving around the space ecosystem, what are some of the new technology or components we need to build as a collective global supply chain, and what are some of the application areas that are emergent. And imagine if you marry space technology, which has visual and communications, with AI technology, you could drive a lot of use cases in developing areas which could leapfrog and actually have a lot of advancements. And that's really talking about tech for good.
Kiren, we were talking about the frontier technologies earlier. Could we dig deeper into quantum computing and IMDA's thinking behind this new technology?
So, many decades ago, we were in the era of supercomputing or classical computing, which has really driven a lot of innovation for digitalization, including the cloud. You're hearing about GPUs today, which is driving the AI economy. But if you look into the future, quantum computing, or quantum as a technology, actually there are two different branches. One is computing, the other one is communication. And these are computers that are much more powerful than classical computers to solve problems that classical computers cannot solve today. Hacking of cryptography, encryption, coming up with new materials or pharmaceutical products or medicines. These are just some examples of where quantum computing could be used. Today, there's a lot of technology that's already out there in the laboratories that are very, very promising. But in my mind, in the next 2 or 3 years, you might see significant breakthroughs where fault-tolerant quantum computers come into the markets. And when that happens, you're going to see much faster innovation in drug discovery, much more innovations in the finance industry, much faster innovations in the logistics, supply chain industries. So this is a potential to what we're watching quite closely. And because of this tremendous potential, Singapore has been investing quietly in the quantum space for more than 2 decades now. At last year's ATX Summit, DPM Heng announced 300 million additional investment into quantum in various hardware as well as software and algorithm areas. And we are quite keen to see how we position Singapore in the global ecosystem as one of the critical nodes for quantum computing and quantum communications.
Exciting stuff, Kiren. Another area gaining momentum, I think, is creative tech, especially where content, storytelling, and immersive media meet digital tools. What's the opportunity there?
Well, you're seeing AI impact every facet of daily life and every facet of enterprise work. The creative industry is no different. We have seen Gen AI tools, examples Zora from OpenAI, and many other tools that actually can automate a lot of the manual work that was done to either create content, distribute content, or even create games, right? So we have a thriving media ecosystem in Singapore, and we are quite keen to lean forward to actually enable and train our workforce and companies to actually leverage these technologies to become a lot more productive when it comes to storytelling, content creation, game development, so that we can become a lot more productive and leverage these technologies to actually turbo boost Singapore's efforts in this space. Virtual production is another area. Previously, you needed to film in very elaborate sets in countries like New Zealand to do Lord of the Rings. Today, you can do it with a virtual screen where you can inject different images, different scenes, and actually do it a lot more productively at a much lower cost and a much faster time. So this is just examples of technology, and AI is coming into the space quite prominently, and we're trying to see how we can uplift the entire ecosystem in the media sector to also do the same.
Yeah, I'm sure these innovations are changing not just how content is made, but how it's consumed and monetized as well. On the other hand, how does this connect with digital sustainability?
So digital sustainability is a big word, but there are many dimensions and facets of it. One area that we have been very focused on in order to enable our digital economy, whether it's for AI or other technologies, we need to have a robust and resilient infrastructure in Singapore, connected locally and globally. Everything from submarine cables to data centers to satellite technologies and 5G in between. So we have invested significantly as a country in upgrading and uplifting our infrastructure so that we are future ready. I think that's the first point. The second one is really we need to do this in a sustainable way. Of course, when it comes to AI and applications, you need a lot of compute capacity. And so in Singapore, we need to do it in a sustainable way. We have launched our green data center blueprints over the last couple of years to ensure that our infrastructure is future ready, but at the same time sustainable. And we are working with globally leading data center companies and cloud majors to anchor some of the best of breed sustainable facilities in Singapore to drive the digital economy in Singapore and the region.
Okay, speaking about that, I want to touch on scaling. What is IMDA's approach in terms of ensuring innovation scales across sectors and society?
I think scaling is a critical pathway, and I think we do it in a couple of ways. One is, of course, making sure that our enabling infrastructure is robust enough to actually scale this, right? So I think telecommunications infrastructure, what I mentioned earlier, is critical. The talent and training of new talent coming into the sector, but more importantly, uplifting our entire workforce to use this technology is another important scaling factor. The third is having rules, regulations, and governance around how to deploy this technology is another scaling factor, because if you take that uncertainty out in terms of skills, governance, and infrastructure quality, you actually drive a lot of innovation at a company for what they do best. So I think that's one big dimension of how we scale technologies across. The other one is, of course, investing upfront in technology that I mentioned earlier in frontier technology areas so that we learn before the technology actually arrives and is ready, so that we know how to use it. And that's a competitive advantage for Singapore as well. And of course, applying it. Third is applying it to some of our biggest constraints that we have, whether it's urban solutions, whether it's water availability, whether it's resource constraints, whether it's sustainability. Applying these technologies to challenges that Singapore has helps us to not just build the technology, but apply it smartly.
Okay, now let's talk about the week ahead. ATX kicks off tomorrow. What can attendees expect this year that's different or especially timely?
Yeah, we started this 5 years ago, and this is the 5th anniversary of ATX. This is not really an event or a conference. How we look at it is that it's a platform to convene global industry leaders, policymakers, academia, and thought leaders to discuss exactly the same issues that we've been discussing today. How do we bring the best leaders from around the world to have those conversations and start collaborations here? And Asia is a huge opportunity area for any company from around the world. And in order to deploy technology meaningfully, you need technology, business model, and policy to come together to make meaningful impact. And that's how we scale. And we're positioning Singapore as that neutral location where we can have these discussions and collaborations started in Singapore, applied globally. So we're quite excited by that, and we've got globally leading leaders from some of the frontier companies that we just spoke about. Everybody from OpenAI to Cohere to Kuiper, dexterity, and you name it. So in all these themes, we have some of the leading companies that are innovating in this space to share their thoughts and see how we can bring that to Asia and grow in a safe and sustainable way.
What's some of the conferences you're excited about?
Well, I think the one I'm really looking forward to is a fireside chat with Aidan Gomez, who is the CEO of Cohere. They make models for enterprises, and actually, if enterprises can deploy these technologies at scale, I think that'll be quite wonderful to see. The other one is, of course, Peter Schwartz from Salesforce. He's a chief futurist, and his view into where technology is going, where the world is moving, and seeing his crystal ball will be quite an exciting space. We are convening some of the globally leading policymakers in AI safety in Singapore. So how does the world view AI safety and what's the path forward? I think that's going to be another exciting discussion. And you know what? This year, what's different is ATX, the summit, which happens at Capella in Sentosa. We have added a concept of a village. So beyond the 2 days of fireside chats, plenaries, and summit content, we have another 13 roundtables where these are closed-door discussions with really leading people who actually co-create this. And we have 33 fringe events. Everybody from Google, AWS to OpenAI is going to be there to bring their ecosystem into the ATX ecosystem. So in a way, it's a platform, not just the summit, the roundtables, as well as the fringe activities in what we call the village.
The movers and shakers of the tech world. And this whole event, ATX, isn't just for tech specialists, is it?
It's for everyone. ATX is actually a 25,000 participant activity that's going to happen this week. There are a couple of segments to that. I made mention of the ATX Summit at Capella, the roundtables at Capella, and the village at Capella. There's also, alongside this week, the ATX Enterprise that happens at the Expo. And down there, you're going to see a much larger group of students, companies, startups, big companies from around the world coming there to show their technologies, talk about it, and see how we can foster collaborations and connections. One of the largest platform technology events in the year in Singapore. So they're not just coming for the conference or the summit or the trade show. They're actually coming to meet people. And actually that's a very important aspect of how we curate and also connect people in a meaningful way, such that we have collaboration projects, opportunities to work together, and actually seal that co-creation for the future of technology at ATX for the world.
All right, Kiren, before we let you go, what's the one thing you hope listeners will take away from this moment we're in?
I think, we're living in very exciting times. I mentioned tech optimism and tech contestation. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for Singapore, from everyone who is in our workforce, to every SME, to every startup, to every large company. We need to lean forward into this, embrace innovation, embrace the technology, deal with some of the challenges when it comes to implementing it, and we'll work together as a collective ecosystem to drive Singapore's digital economy into the next wave.
Well said, Kiren. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us such a comprehensive view of where things are headed. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Industry Insight. Big thanks to Kiren Kumar and the team at IMDA. Kiren is, of course, the Deputy Chief Executive of IMDA, or the Infocomm Media Development Authority of Singapore. Don't forget to check out Asia Tech Exchange Singapore 2025, happening this week from May 27 to May 29, which is bringing together the region's most influential voices in tech, business, and policy.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.